And he said, they found my sister in the basement.
No. That is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Shut Up, Tell Me More. I am so excited for this one. Sometimes in life, there are people who have extraordinary abilities that just cannot be explained. And my guest today is one of those people. Gina Marie DeLuca is a spiritual medium. You guys, she read me yesterday, and when I tell you it was beyond accurate, she knew names, she knew dates, she knew things that you could not know in any possible way. She is the real deal. She has appeared on the Real Housewives of New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, and she is here today to talk to us, and I am so excited. So sit back, relax, and without further ado, here is my interview with Gina Marie DeLuca. Gina Marie, I am so excited that you are here. I have to tell you, my reading was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I consider myself to be a psychic enthusiast, if you will. I've been to psychics, I've been to healers, I've been to astrologists. There was nothing like I've experienced like the reading that we did yesterday. So
Thank you.
thank you for sharing your gift. You are incredible. When did you realize that you had this gift?
Okay, so that's kind of like a two-part answer. I always had this psychic ability, if you will, since I was a young child. And it really manifested into full-blown mediumship when I was 40 years old. So I came into my own a little bit later in life. And I think there was a reason for that. I was busy. I was very busy, young adult, college, engaged. I was, married at 23, a young mom. I have 4 children. And so I would like to say that with every pregnancy, this ability heightened. It was incredible. And the older I got, the more intense it got. And so by 40 years old, I really delved into it to figure out what is this that I'm experiencing. And that's when I realized, and I started practicing at 40 years old.
Oh my goodness. So when you were a child though, did you like ever see anything, or is there anything you could think back to that you're like, that was the gift? I just didn't recognize it.
Not so much of seeing what I thought were dead people.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of like a knowing or a feeling, a dream of someone. I would dream of someone that, my mom was best friends with that lived up the street from us. And then I tell her, oh, I dreamt of Aunt Jeanette. And the next morning she'd call me. I remember this. She called me and said, Aunt Jeanette passed away. I'm like, oh my God. So it was a lot of that I remember. I distinctly remember having a dream of the Blessed Mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to me, and I remember being woken up in the dream state by her breath. It was like a gush of wind that woke me up. And I had this incredible experience where I'm watching the whole dream unfold. Like I'm watching myself in the dream and these things actually occurring. That was impactful. And so, but there were times where I knew someone was there, or I'd have a vision of something. I just always questioned it. I didn't know what it was. So I kind of like put it out of my mind. And I think it was just more of a coping mechanism, so I wouldn't be afraid
Yeah.
of what I was experiencing. And so when I learned more about what was actually happening with me, I started to embrace it, and I stepped out of the fear of it, and I just kind of took it head on.
Wow. So when you were 40, you already had kids, you were married. What did they say when you're like, I really think that this is something?
What's interesting is my husband is the one that said, I think this is really something. And I think you should talk to someone who can help you understand why you're dreaming these things and and what's actually going on, because this is bigger than you. And so I didn't really share it with my children because they were young. And I didn't want to expose them to that because I was afraid of it. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I learned about this woman. Actually, my husband found out about her. Her name is Pat Longo, and she's a person in this industry, so to speak, who's a past life regressionist, and she's a healer, and she's out in Long Island. And I made the appointment with her, and I sat with her, and she kind of was giving me a test, but I didn't know it. So I didn't know what to expect. I just went to her thinking, I'm going to tell her what's going on, and she's just going to help me, like, get rid of this, whatever it is, or understand it. And, long story short, and 4 hours later, she was like, listen to me. You have an incredible ability. You have an ability to talk to those that are on the other side that have crossed over. And, I want you to fasten your seatbelt because you are going to hit the road speeding. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is she talking about? She was absolutely right. And she was a wonderful advisor. She was very good about keeping you grounded, very good about the practice aspect of it. And I just kind of took her structure and made it my own, and literally went out there and started practicing with intention, like at the supermarket.
Yeah.
I start hearing things or feeling something, and, I would just ask the person, do you know what excuse me, do you know what a medium is? And most people say, yeah. And okay, well, I'm a medium and I'm getting some information for you. I feel like there's someone here for you. Would you like me to share it? Because you always want to be respectful of another person's space.
Yes.
It is not for everyone. So, 9 out of 10 times I had yeses. The few no's that I got, which were only 2, I think, ever, when I was practicing, were very good lessons for me. Yeah. In respecting another person's space and how to properly approach someone else, because this is a very delicate field.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine the stuff that you hear. So what does spirit do when the person on the other side is like, I don't want to hear it?
Spirit, that's a great question, Pam. Oh my gosh, I love that. Spirit didn't do anything. It just got whooshed away. And so it was kind of left with me. And I was like, okay, and it taught me how to be more confident. It taught me that this is not for everyone. It taught me that you have to respect other people's space. People get excited. Like, I remember my mom getting all excited when she realized this was actually something. And she'd call me, be like, can you do a reading for this one and that one? They really need it. And I'm like, did they ask you? Or right. Is this your opinion? No, I just know. And I'm like, Mom, this is not how I work.
It's like better than being like the best plastic surgeon in the world. Like, your gift is incredible. I can only imagine. I'm sure when you're at parties, like, I liken it to, like, if someone's like certain body parts hurting, they run into a friend that's a doctor and they're like, can you just look at them? They're like, I'm not at the office. Do you experience that all the time?
Exactly. And yes, I experience it more often than not. And I truly am, when I'm out with my family, my husband, my children, my friends, my siblings, my parents, whoever it is, this is turned off. It's like a light switch. And I learned that early on also, from Pat. And you have the ability to turn it on and off. If you don't turn it off, it's like having a battery that's charged that gets completely drained. And that's what happens to you. And so I've experienced it, and I had to learn the hard way, because I was like, I'm never turning this off. Like, I have to help everyone I can. And anywhere I am, I need to share when Spirit's here, right? I didn't want to tell Spirit, like, sorry, it's not happening right now. However, it just becomes this internal light switch. And when you're done working, you turn it off. And I work a lot. Mm-hmm. So I have to turn it off. And I've learned to respect my own boundaries as well, and to know how much I can do, and, how much I just need a break. So it's good. I do go out. And when I do go out, very often someone will approach me or, ask for a reading, or they'll just come and talk to me. And I am so humbled by that, so humbled by it. And, you know, there were times that I was like, oh God, I have to talk to this person. There were times I was in a restaurant and I had to go over to someone. I'm like, I'm so sorry to bother you. And, and gave them the reading. But more often than not, light switch is turned off. And when it's personal time, it's personal time. And when it's work time, the light switch is on and I'm working. And that's how I can preserve my energy to give the best readings and make the best connections with spirit. I need to be able to preserve and conserve my energy. So that helps having those boundaries.
I can only imagine how much energy flows through you every single day. What does spirit genuinely want to tell us in the living side of life?
Spirit wants to tell us that there's always hope and that you are never alone, and to never be afraid to reach out to someone for help. That life here has a lot of beauty to it. You just have to go for it. You just have to make that choice to choose the beauty and go for the beauty, even through the pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And spirit also wants us to know that there is more to life than here on earth, and that in the next realm, it is beautiful and peaceful and freeing, and that we can all be there someday.
It's so comforting. I do want to ask you though. Okay, so my grandfather was one of the people that came through, and you're like, he came through first. He was unexpected, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's with me. Like I can feel his presence, but I'm like, is he with me at all times? Like, is spirit with us when we're in the bathroom, when we're in the bedroom? Like, what is going on with that? That's got to be like one of the most common questions you get asked.
It is a very common question. I think there's a book out there, like "Is Spirit in the Shower with Me" or something like that. Spirit is here all of the time. And I kind of make this analogy. When we don't know spirit's here or we're not receiving the signs, it's because a part of our inner self is asleep.
Okay.
And then when we do know that spirit's around, or we do feel signs or see signs or hear signs, it's like a part of us has woken up and we're awake in that realm, so to speak. So when I channel, I feel like my spirit is outside of my body, and that's how I can connect with them.
Wow. Is it like you're
And it makes
watching
it,
yourself do the reading?
yes. And what's so wild about it is that's how I dream now. And a lot of my dreams are very prophetic, or have some sort of significant meaning. And so, in so many of my dreams, the majority, I am like a bystander watching everything going down. And I'm watching myself having conversations or doing things or being places that wind up happening. But I'm like almost like in the corner of your room and looking through in a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
So before you go to bed every night, or you're like, all right, buckle up. What are we going to see tonight? Like you're kind of watching a movie every single night.
Yeah, yeah. Before I go to sleep every night, I pray every night, and I really ground myself before I go to sleep. So I'm like a Netflix junkie, like
Mm-hmm. Aren't we all?
Peacock and Hulu, and oh my god, and I need the brainless food to help me decompress.
I got to
And
ask,
so,
what's your brainless food?
oh my god, Handmaid's Tale, um, God, there's so many that, Mobland, I'm watching now.
Yes.
Um, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. I love documentaries, love them.
Can I
I
ask you
actually
about
have,
the curious case? Do you have any psychic insight into what is really happening in that case?
oh gosh. Um, you know, I literally tried to connect with Natalia's spirit at one point.
Yes.
like deeper into the season, as I got deeper into the season. And I was like, because when people behave a certain way, sometimes it's because there are entities that have attached to them, and they like to play with people's emotions and they like to egg them on. And I can only explain it like they're just not peaceful entities, if you
Yeah.
will.
Are they bad or are they just disruptive?
Disruptive,
Okay.
disruptive. And so they they in turn can make us do bad things or behave disruptively, right? And so I think that from the beginning of Natalia's life, she felt unloved and displaced.
Mm-hmm.
And, we can't forget of the disability she was
Right.
born with. Um, Dealing with that alone, how how heavy that was for her soul without having the proper love and support,
Yep. For
right?
sure.
And the tools and the proper surgeries. And this child, now a grown woman, has suffered
Yes.
tremendously.
Yes.
And so, what happens when you're suffering? Other people suffer. Whether you're trying to make them suffer or not, the people who are trying to care for you, they will suffer too.
You're right. Hurt people hurt people. It's true.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yep.
My
Wow.
sister always says that. So true.
Yeah. So when you're doing readings, do you ever see any of those, like, I want to use the Stassi Schroeder term, like dark passenger? Like, are there any dark spirits that have come through when you are doing a reading?
Mm-hmm. There are dark spirits that come through. Um, I'm going to tell people who have this ability, be careful when you're under the influence of alcohol, or any other medication, to channel for others, because there is some sort of doorway or entryway that some dark energies can enter in through. That's
Wow.
one. And then two, I've done paranormal investigations. I actually just recently worked on one, with this great director producer Steve Stanoulis. We were out at the Kirshner mansion in Staten Island. I don't know if you're familiar with
No,
Jersey
but I
at
want
all,
to I
or
want to
Staten
hear all
Island,
about
New
it.
York. And yeah, and we did a paranormal investigation out there, and it was, I mean, the place is haunted. There was a portal there, um, and just to preface, I go in prepared. I go in fully prepared. So I ground, I pray, I do white light exercises. Um, and so I went in there saying, okay, whoever's there, whoever's, going to come through, I'm all ears. I'm your man.
Yeah.
Um, but I do have boundaries. So I need to protect my energy field so that they don't try to cross through that energy field and attach to me, right?
Okay,
And
you're
come home.
such like a normal girl though. I know that like obviously you have extraordinary talents and abilities, but like you going into this, were you freaked out?
I wasn't afraid of this one. I was actually excited for it because Steve actually started off as a client for me. And then, I've done a few readings for him. And then he asked me to do an investigation on a lost dog, out here in New Jersey. And it was pretty on point. And so, I went out into the field and I drove through miles of like wooded area, and everything that I documented that I saw in my meditation wound up being there.
So
And he witnessed that.
did you
So
find the dog though? I got to know how'd that one end.
no,
Oh, Bubs. Okay.
yeah, yeah, poor baby. And so, you know, I think he was just like also blown away with that. He's a retired cop, New York City cop. He has a private investigation company. And so I've always loved that whole area of my work. Um, and so he called me and he's like, oh my God, we're doing this paranormal investigation. And I've got this great crew coming in, and they're young and dynamic and they've worked together before. So I was kind of like the new person coming in. And it was really cool. It was really cool. So I know he's got this in the works somewhere with one of these networks, which is really exciting.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Can
yeah.
you talk
So
about it? Can you talk about what you saw or heard or felt?
um, I'd have to ask Steve.
Okay. Well, we'll post when it comes out. Let me know, and we'll
Yes.
post where that is because that is
Yes. I don't want to
unreal.
give away any of the good stuff.
Yes. In other cases, maybe not that one, but other ones, have you ever seen spirit? Like, can we see ghosts?
Yes.
What do they look like? Are they always Victorian girls in long nightgowns? Like, I feel like that's like the quintessential ghost. Like, it's never like I see a kid from like a millennial kid that's like listening to like music on an iPhone. Like, what do
It
these
comes
ghosts
in
look like?
all forms. It comes in all forms. Yeah, it comes in all forms. Ghosts come in all forms. They can take the look of a human being.
Yeah.
They could look like, we've heard that they're like sheets,
Yeah.
that you could see through, that are invisible, but you can see the silhouette of the sheet, floating through your home. They come in all shapes and sizes for sure.
Wow. So you mentioned before that you've worked with police and that type of thing. Can you tell me about that work and maybe a success story that you've had where you've uncovered something?
Well, there was a investigation down South Jersey of a woman. Her house burned down. They couldn't find her. There was something very shady that had gone on with her boyfriend that was there with her up until the fire. And so actually, her family members reached out to me. She has this just this adorable Uncle Lou. And he was there, he met us out there, but it was originally her niece. And her and her husband had reached out to me to go down there. And I went down, and, the property was all caution taped. And it was hazardous because the house wasn't completely burned down to the ground. So I got as close as I could. And my husband actually came out with me the first time around because he's like, how do I know who you're meeting? And if you're going to come home,
Strong
like, can I
point.
come with you?
You're
I'm
like,
like,
I'm just
sure.
going to a crime scene. It'll
I
be
need to.
fine. It'll be great. Totally safe.
Yeah. I got there, and I mean, they had the dogs out looking through miles of forest behind her home. They were looking everywhere. I got there, and I said, she's here. She's here. And I'm like, I need to go in the basement. And you could see, like, the garage was exposed from what I remember. There was just stuff everywhere, just, you know everything burned,
Hmm.
um and just scattered all over. It was terrible. And I could see the entrance into the stairs down from the garage, and I'm like, I need to go down there. And they're like, you cannot go down there. Like, we're not even supposed to be on this property right now. She's not here. And I was like, guys, listen, I will do whatever I can to help you find your aunt. I could be wrong. I'm only human, but I feel her spirit here, and I feel it down. She's underground, and I want to go down in that basement. They said the cops looked in the basement already. Police were here. They combed the property. They looked in the basement, and I quote,
Yeah.
she's not there. So I was like, okay. So then I called a colleague of mine out in Connecticut. And I originally met her when I was working with Pat Long out in Long Island. She was in one of our group, couple group sessions that we had. And she had worked on some crime cases, cold cases. And so I reached out to her and I said, would you just do me a favor and, see what you get on this? And so, she did. She got something. We looked into it. It didn't pan out. Very talented woman.
Hmm.
And it was probably for something else that came her way. I'm sure of it. She's very talented. And then I reached out to someone else, and it was way off, way off. They were telling us to look by a bridge in Brooklyn. I don't even know. So anyway, long story short, my husband said, you always say that, but it's already a long story.
We love it. We love long stories
I
here.
go back down there 2 more times to help them look. And we're looking all over the town. And now they're like, we're going to bring a boat in to trudge there's a river over there down that area. And I went to the river. I didn't feel her anywhere else. So I just kind of, sucked it up, and I didn't really give my input again after that. And we shut everything down. And Uncle Lou reaches out to me. I don't know how much, maybe a year later. I don't even know, 6 months, a year. I'm making that part up because I have no idea. I don't remember. And he said, they found my sister in the basement.
No. That is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Oh.
Yeah. So that's like, and it was a very good learning lesson for me, again, to stay true to the messages from spirit and not worry about being wrong.
Yeah.
Not care what it looks like. I'm human, so forgive me if I get it wrong. I'm just here trying to help. But I need to stay true to the messages because they're most often, like 9 out of 10 times, I say it's on point.
So in that case, do you know where the message was coming from? Was it her, or was it a voice that you couldn't identify? What did it sound like?
Great question, Pam. Oh my gosh, I love this. So I want to say it was a combination. I knew she was not with us anymore. So I was definitely channeling her. And then I want to say I was channeling my spirit guides, her spirit guides, perhaps. That's not always clear exactly who you're channeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm channeling people who are alive, and it's kind of, like you're getting information from their energy, and I'm not sure if they're crossed over or not. Like people have said, I don't know if my loved one is still alive. They left 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll start communicating with them. And it's interesting because the information's on point. They could validate it, but I'm not always sure if they're crossed over or not. So, we in this industry have to be very careful and respectful of loved ones who are looking for missing loved ones, because you don't always know.
Yeah, it's very hard. And I'm sure messages can be misconstrued as something else. You mentioned Netflix. Do you watch like unsolved mysteries or crimes? And
yes, love, love, love.
so when you're watching, do you know what happens like every time?
You're so funny. Sometimes, however, I'm usually watching Netflix at midnight because I haven't fallen asleep, and it helps me fall asleep. So I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. You're more turned off. One thing I have to ask you about though, John Bonet, I'm like low key obsessed with this case.
Are you?
I'm just like, it's so fascinating. It's like a mystery that I feel like just won't ever get solved. Have you watched anything about her, and do you have?
I did. I watched it a while ago. I remember feeling like, my God, they know who the killer is. He's been in their midst. The police have interviewed him, and they let him go.
Wow. Okay.
That poor child. And then her poor mother.
Yes. 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 So you don't think the mother did it. That's good to hear.
The mother did not do it.
Okay. I love this. This is a hot take. Thank you for clarifying
yes, you're
it.
welcome.
I don't even know how that could possibly happen. So that's so good to hear. When you are just living your daily life, do you basically have a cell phone to like people in your life who have passed? Like, can you talk to anyone at any time?
Pretty much. Like, I do like to ground, and I do like to follow a certain process before I do so. And so, when I don't and I try and talk to them, that's fine too. But I really try to stay respectful of my process.
Yeah.
And so, yes, like after I've completed that process in the morning. So like today, I get up with my youngest leaves the house at whether it's 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. to get to school. He's a junior in high school. We get up with him, get him out the door. And then, I have 3 other children, and two work virtual from home. They're hybrid, and the other one's at college. And so it's a very busy household. And I like to get everything done before I even start work in the morning. So I'll have like my laundry done. The house is in order. I will have meditated, prayed, gone for my walk. I like to do this 3.5, 4 mile walk as much as possible during the week, like on average of 4 days a week. And then I come home and I'll just say, okay, talk to me.
Yeah.
Lights on, talk to me. And I'll start to try to get messages before I'm even with my clients. And I'll jot notes down and then I just go. I start.
Wow. And then you turn it off. Do you have like hours? Or are you like, okay, it's 5 p.m. I'm done now, and click the button,
Yep.
and turn it off?
Yep. 100%. As soon as I'm done with my last client for the day, switches off.
Yeah.
Like my assistant doesn't even like to text me. She's like, I'll text you every Friday. I'll get you caught up on the calendar. If we have any emergencies, then I'll reach out to you to try and get somebody in. But she's great because she's like, you need, like, I've had vacation days on my calendar. Like I think it was like Memorial Day. She gave me a vacation day. I was like, oh my God, we could stay down the shore for a long weekend. I'm so excited, because I'm just like, she runs my whole calendar. I can't see it because then I'll mess it up. I've tried.
Yeah.
When I've run into someone and they're like, I really need a reading, and I've tried to put them on, I mess everything
Listen,
up.
you're the talent. You don't need to know. You don't need to know. I do want to ask you about the afterlife. Does spirit tell you what it looks like in the afterlife and what happens when we die? Do you have any insight into that?
Yes, it's been different. It's not always the same. I've seen spirit in beautiful fields of flowers, roses, daisies. I've seen spirit surrounded by horses, and then you find out they loved the racetrack or they had horses here. I've seen spirit show me themselves at their funeral, and they've talked about that. So does that mean that's what the afterlife looks like? No.
Okay.
But I think that you're just able, as a medium, you are able to connect with the vibration of spirit, the energy of spirit. And whatever that is what I can translate to you.
Yeah.
And I can sometimes hear them, sometimes I see them, sometimes I feel them. And I try to take all those things and effectively share it with my clients in hopes that they'll walk away feeling some sort of comfort and peace themselves, because I believe that's why these readings are happening. I believe that they are somehow directed to me through their loved ones. And whenever they're with me, it was meant to be.
Yeah. So I'm very I obviously am such a believer in this stuff and very spiritual, but I get confused between if there are past lives and lives after this, but then there's a spirit world. Are we multiple places at once? Can you explain that to me?
So my sister, Jackie Ballantine, is the past life guru. She is renowned for her work.
Your real sister?
And yes.
So you have intuitive people in your bloodline?
In the family, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's on both sides. I always say, I got it from my grandmother on my dad's side. But my mother's family is also very intuitive. My grandmother, her mom on that side was just a very wise woman. And she was very medically intuitive back in her day. And so it's definitely on both sides of the family. And
Amazing.
so, both my sister and I have the gift. And she does intuitive clinical hypnosis. So she helps people with trauma.
Yeah.
She helps people with addiction. She's just an incredible human being on top of that. And she's single, by the way, if we know anybody in the world.
Yes.
I work as a matchmaker a little bit, and so
Yeah. So I
it's
want to
like my
talk.
secret passion.
Yes, I want to ask you about being, because I read somewhere that you're a media matchmaker. But before we get there, so the past life, spiritual world, do these things do they exist together? Are they exclusive to one another?
Um, Interesting. I want to say, would exist together, because spirit can be everywhere, past, present, future.
Okay. Question answered. Thank you. So going back to medium matchmaking, tell me about that. Does spirit guide you towards people?
Yes. Yes.
So
They
like
guide me towards people.
a
So
single
I just had a client that got married last weekend, and she was absolutely guided. She's been my client for several years,
uh-huh.
and she was absolutely guided by spirit to her husband. And I am just so thrilled because they're literally, on Instagram on safari, on their honeymoon. And yes, I've had some successful, incredible matches. And it's just something I love to do.
Yes, how fun is that? Do you say to them like there is a guy, he's X age, this hair color, like how do you or are you just saying there's someone out there, you're going to meet them soon, that type of thing?
So, yeah, I mean, I'll give whatever details I can.
Yeah. What's the
And go ahead.
No, what was the weirdest thing that you've ever been told to communicate during a reading?
The weirdest thing that I've ever been told to communicate during a reading. Hmm. I mean, I have to be a little graphic.
Yeah,
I don't
go
know if,
for it. We love it.
I don't know if it's weird or it's more graphic, but it was like, okay, when we're done with this reading, you need to go home and just show your spouse how very appreciative you are. And they're saying, do that on your knees. And it was like, what? And we
Oh,
were cracking
I
up
love that.
because, and it's just something that she was like, oh my God, like this morning, he was begging me.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I'm tired, and the kids are crying, and blah blah blah. And then in the reading, some things came out that he was doing behind the scenes for her. So then
Yeah.
she was just so like, oh my God, he really does love me.
Oh,
Like here I am thinking, I'm on my own doing this at home. He gets to go to work and just not have to do all it. And so she left with a lot of peace in her heart because she came worried
yeah.
that something else was going on. And
Yes.
so there were a lot of validations, and it was wonderful. I'm like, I think a lot of people's spouses like me. Like
Yes,
they
a
were like,
hundred
go back to that book.
percent. Yes. Who was the spiritual guide that told her that? Was it like,
Yeah, I get that too. They're like, oh my God, you're like a version of Dr. Ruth. I
yeah.
swear. It's the funniest thing. I am like so many labels to people. It's the funniest thing.
Yes, you cover the entire gamut of life. When the messages are coming to you, are they visual? Are they audible? Are they, how do you
Yeah,
feel
all of
them?
the above. All of the
Yeah.
above. I'm able to experience the messages, um, all of the above.
So when I think about psychics and mediums, of course, there are people that are naysayers and non believers, and their
Mhm.
arguments are often if psychics are real, why don't they win the lottery? How did they
Mhm.
not predict 9/11 and COVID 19 and all these things? What do
Mhm.
you say to that?
I think that a lot of people, um, have probably had those experiences. So, um, it's interesting. I was sharing a dream with my sister and my spiritual advisor the other day, and I didn't know how to interpret it. And my sister said, "Well, did you ever have this type of dream before?" It was about war,
Okay.
and I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "When?" And I said, remember when I was like young and I like right before 9/11, I remember this dream distinctly. I wasn't notating my dreams back then. Now I do. Um, I remember having something that was very similar to what happened. And I didn't know it at the time. And I think there are probably thousands, if not millions of us that had that experience,
Yeah.
that dreamt or felt something that was coming. But, you know, unless you are a validated psychic medium,
Yes.
I think people will question it and be
Yes.
like, what does she know? She's not,
Yes.
And so I was one of those people that like was embarrassed to share that those experiences with others, to tell them what I was seeing, feeling, thinking, hearing, dreaming about. And now people are like, can you tell us what you dream? Can you share it with us? So I think there are a lot of us out there. I think many people are intuitive, empathic, um, have psychic ability. It's just being aware
Yeah.
of it. It's being woken up to it. Like, are you awake to it? So once you're woken up to it, it really, you can start to validate it and give it validation. Does that make sense?
Yes. How do you open yourself up? Because, like, I low key have been like, I would like this ability. Like, I want to be open to the world, but truthfully, I don't think I have that gift. How do you elaborate on the gift?
Okay. So I think it's important to acknowledge that you're having a psychic experience or some sort of prophetic dream, a psychic dream, or that even you're an empath. Like
Hmm.
you're in a room with someone and something feels off. They're seemingly happy, they're smiling, they're socializing, but you know down deep in here, in your midsection, that something's off. Or
Yeah.
maybe you know it from here, from your third eye, that something's just not right. And so that's something that an empath would be able to do. And so embrace what's going on, acknowledge it, and then very important to meditate.
Yeah.
Meditation's what effectively opened this thing up for me. And I personally meditate. Well, it's my favorite meditation, but it's called I Am Wishes Fulfilled by Dr. Wayne Dyer and James Twyman. And it literally is a game changer. It's a life changer. It helped me to open up this tunnel, so to speak, to the other side. It
Wow.
helped the messages to come clearer. Um, it expedited messages. It gave me peace and calm through it all.
Yeah.
And so, definitely meditation. I think it's important to surround and ground yourself. People should do that anyway before they leave the house. So just do like a 10-second meditation. Thank you, God, for surrounding me with the protection of your white light.
Okay.
And so when you leave your safe place, so to speak, you can be with as many people as you will be with that day. However, no one's energy field is going to break through yours. You're
Hmm.
surrounded, grounded, protected. I like to do it for my husband, my children, my family members. It just makes me feel better, and I think it works.
Yeah. Do you ever have people that you come in contact with that you could just immediately see, like, this person's energy is not good?
Mm-hmm.
What do you see? Do you see something like someone was one of the healers I went to told me, like, there was a guy that came to the door and I just saw his face, like his face was almost like melting. Do you see stuff like that, or is it a feeling that you get?
Um, yeah. So I've had experiences like that. For me, it's more of a feeling that
Yeah.
I get. Um, it's more of a feeling. My sister will look at someone and she'll see more of a visual
Yeah.
on them. I'm more of like my soul is connecting with the other person's soul, or let me feel what the energy is, and that's why I'm so um, I think it's so important to ground yourself so the energy doesn't get in.
Yeah.
You could still sense energy, you could still feel it, and you could still communicate with it, but you don't have to let it into your house, into your temple, so to speak, which is your you.
Yeah. If someone wants to connect with someone who has passed, I know we often talk about signs. They could be coins, birds, all the different things, but are those things real? And can you ask for signs if you're looking for comfort from someone and you can't get a reading?
Those things are absolutely real. I'm going to tell everyone who's listening what I tell my clients all the time. You don't need a medium to talk to your loved ones. Your loved ones hear you all the time. So start talking to them, keep talking to them as if they're here. Um, and, try to replace the grief with the joy and the love that you have for that, for your loved one, so that you could be more open to receiving these messages. Um, and it works. It takes practice. Anything good takes practice, right? And so it's important to just continuously try to practice feeling and receiving signs from your loved ones. And if you replace the grief with joy, it'll make it a little bit easier. And I know it's hard. I am, I walk the walk. Um, and, but it's incredible because the signs get so strong. And I think, well, for me, I was able to see more and more as I replaced the grief with the joy. So I encourage people to do that. They can talk to their loved ones all the time. Their loved ones hear them. And I promise if they meditate, even just a few minutes a day, ground themselves, calm their minds, that they'll be able to receive the messages that their loved ones are definitely sending.
Wow. Like you literally just took my breath away. Like as I'm listening, I'm like, breathe. You have to remember to breathe because that
Mm-hmm,
is huge.
mm-hmm,
And I think so helpful to people, anyone that's dealing with grief. And unfortunately, we're all going to at some point in our lives.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I do want to switch gears and talk about your reality TV participation. So
Okay.
you were on two of my very favorite shows, The Jersey Shore and The Real Housewives of New Jersey. What were those
Mm-hmm.
experiences like and how did they differ?
They were a lot of fun. Um, how did they differ? Um, Interesting. How did they differ? I mean, they were similar because they were reality shows.
Yeah.
Um,
Were
I
the
think,
casts different? Like,
yeah, the demographic of the cast, like it was just a younger cast, obviously at the Jersey Shore, and then we had an older cast at the Real Housewives. So I think that was probably the primary difference.
yeah. Did any of the cast members surprise you with either their openness or how they reacted?
The Jersey Shore cast surprised me. They were so into it and they were so respectful of the process and they really believed, and they were eager for the messages. Like, they weren't there to test you. They were there wanting to get messages. And so when you come in with that frame of mind, it eliminates a lot of nonsense and wasted time. And we can
Yes.
get down to business, right? And
Yes.
so they were great. They were a pleasure. They were a pleasure to work with.
I think they're rare in the reality TV world in that they are very real, especially so late in the game. They've been on for so long that they're not there to perform. They're not there to make good TV. They're just themselves, and that's why it works so beautifully. What about the Housewives? Who was like your favorite person to read during that show?
My favorite person to read was, I want to say, Margaret and Dolores. I loved
Love.
reading the both of them equally.
Love. Okay, so it's so funny. I end up talking about Margaret Josephs almost every single interview. Like she comes in. Maybe she's my soul family. I don't know. But
Yes.
that is so awesome. Has anyone followed up with you to get another reading?
Yes. I actually went to Margaret's house, and gave her and her mom and her girlfriend a reading.
Yeah.
Her girlfriend, her colleague.
Lexi, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yes. That's beautiful. Beautiful, Lexi. So that was great. They were so wonderful and gracious. And yeah, I have worked with, Teresa and Dolores and Jen Aiden. And so yeah, I've worked with them, way after the show for sure.
It's incredible. I love it so much. I love how much you share your gift. So before we go, I do have a game. It's called the
Mm-hmm.
Shut Up, Tell Me More game. In my little jar, there are a bunch of questions. They could be love, hopes, dreams, different things. And you get the option to pass on the first one if you don't like it, but then you have to answer the second one.
Okay.
Are you ready to play?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's see. I hope we get a good one. Spirit guides, give us a good one. Okay. The question is, this is the most well-wrapped question I've had yet. So let's see what's in it. Okay. Do you know what an ick is? And if so, what's your biggest ick?
I don't think I know what an ick is.
So you're
Like, like something icky.
like
Is it
like
icky?
something that someone does that's like a turn off. So like it could be like my biggest ick is men that don't cut their nails or something like that.
Ah, okay. Um, Pass.
Okay. Yes. I love that. I'm like, that's not a good enough one for you. We need a better one. Okay. The next question is, who are two celebrities you would love to see box one another?
That's funny. Two celebrities I'd love to see box. Um, Let me think a second. Hmm. It could be a charity event.
Yes.
J Lo and Beyonce.
Oh, genius. And we just saw World Hunger with the financial gain that event's going to make. Oh my goodness. That's such a good one. Gina Marie,
Yeah.
I adore you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me the reading yesterday. I was so blown away. If people want to get in touch with you or get a reading or find out more, where can they go?
They can go to my website, www.ginamariespiritualmedium.com. They can book their appointment there. All the information's there. And it's totally, you could do it on your own, and it's easy. So whenever they need me, they can find me on my website.
Oh, that is so awesome. You are such a gift. And guys, I cannot say enough. Like the accuracy, like I'm a believer anyways, but this was solid information. I was like, this is definitely real and you are phenomenally talented. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Shut Up, Tell Me More. You can find us on Instagram at Shut Up, Tell Me More. Remember to subscribe to the podcast. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, go to the show page and click the follow plus sign. If you listen on Spotify, click the follow button. You can also find us on YouTube. You'll automatically receive new episodes as they come out, as well as updates. Doing this also helps me algorithm land, so thanks in advance. Lastly, give me a 5-star review, and I'll be so, so grateful. See you in the next one.